Hi everyone. In this video, I'm talking about a very important construct and structure which you have to adopt if you're serious about your CAT preparation. And this preparation structure or strategy is about covering 60% of your syllabus in your first 60 days of preparation. Yes, you heard that right. 60% of your syllabus in your first 60 days of preparation, so that not only do you start your preparation on a strong footing, but it also keeps you or puts you in the game to actually maximize your potential and your performance for the exam, which happens in November every year. You're with me, Arun Sharma, and you must have heard of me from my books, the books on CAT, the series of books on CAT from McGraw-Hill, the QA for CAT, the DI and the LR for CAT, or the verbal ability reading comprehension for CAT books, which I have written for McGraw-Hill. I am Bangalore alumnus, and I've been training CAT aspirants for over 3 decades. Yes, you heard that right again. Over 3 decades. I passed out of IIM Bangalore myself in 1995, and ever since that time I've been training CAT aspirants. And it's very often the fact that I've come across people whose uncles or aunts or parents I've trained actually, and they are now coming to me for CAT preparation. So this is one thing in this video. I'm talking about something which is very important according to me, is how do you actually start off your preparation on a strong footing. And that's what this whole video is about. So if you complete watching this video, you're going to get a complete structure and strategy to not just do your best in the preparation for this exam, but actually dominate this exam. So the first part of what I want to speak to you is about why is 60% in 60 days important. There are 2 phases to CAT preparation. The first phase to CAT preparation is the phase where you are building capacity, building performance, or building ability to solve questions. Right? I mean, unless you know how to walk, you can't run. So that's something which is an analogy I always give to my students, that when you start preparing for CAT, the first most important starting phase is that you cover the syllabus so that you get better at solving questions correctly. जब तक questions correct करना नहीं आता है, तब तक जल्दी कैसे करोगे? You can't do things fast unless you know how to do them correctly. So the basic philosophy of CAT prep is that if you want to solve 30-35 questions in the exam out of 66 or 68 that is asked in the actual CAT to get a 99 plus percentile, you have to have the ability to solve 50 plus questions. But while that is important, while the starting point is important for this exam, what is also very important is that you move towards performance phase, toward mock test, towards starting your performance analysis and improving your ability to perform under pressure of time as well as exam. And only then can you actually convert your potential into performance and outcomes. So why covering 60% of syllabus in the first 60 days becomes important is because of the fact that the second phase of preparation, the performance phase, the mock testing phase, that's the phase which actually makes you qualify. So you want to get rid or get through maybe get rid is not the right words, but get through your basic preparation as quickly as possible. And in that context, if you do the high impact syllabus, so when I'm saying 60%, I'm not saying that, okay, this is the chapter count and you do this much, and this, if chapter count is, for example, maths mein chapter count is 20 chapters, so 60% is 12 chapters. I'm not talking about it that way. The way I'm talking about it is that we'll focus on covering 60% of the weightage in the exam and in the first 60 days. And because once you do that, what happens is once you're through with 60% of your weightage of preparation, the last 40% becomes going downhill. It's like it'll go much smoother. Finishing the last 40% will go much smoother, and hence starting off your preparation on strong footing is a job well begun is half done kind of structure. So what we are going to look at now is how to structure your preparation plan, how to structure your preparation structure. How much do you need to study on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, in terms of being able to complete this task that you should start off your CAT preparation with. And we'll now go into it section wise. So let's take the most talked about segment first. Section, the quantitative aptitude, is the third section of your exam. But we'll talk about this first because this is the area that most people are concerned about. what to do and how to build your timeline on this. And again, like all sections in QA, also the first 60 days is very important to set the tone of how you want to prepare and how you're going to prepare for this exam. And 60% syllabus coverage or 60% weightage coverage means typically the arithmetic part has to be there in the first 60 days. And there are two options for what you do next after arithmetic. So I'll talk about that. So arithmetic is 8 chapters: average, alligation, mixtures, percentage, ratio, proportion, time and work, time, speed, distance, interest, and profit and loss. So these 8 chapters typically have a weightage of around 45 to 50% in terms of your exam questions. So out of 22 questions, you can expect anywhere between 8, 9, 10 questions from this area. And when you're talking about 60% coverage, we are looking at around 13 questions out of 22, right? So you have to get to a point in 60 days where you have a shouting chance of solving 13 out of 22 questions in the exam because you have covered that syllabus. So arithmetic is definitely the first part of it, of what you have to focus on in the first 60 days. Followed by, there are two options for what you follow it by in the first 60 days. One option, which is what I would recommend for most of you, would be the numbers area. So numbers area is 2 chapters: number systems and progressions. So this and number systems and progressions typically has between on a lowest side is 2 questions, but normally 3 to 5 questions. So you can expect around 10 to 15% weightage minimum from numbers. So if you're covering 45% weightage from arithmetic and 15% weightage from numbers, it does add up to 60% overall, and that creates your 60% in 60 days syllabus. And of course, after that, the algebra, geometry, and modern maths, those are the remaining 3 areas. Algebra has 4 chapters: permutation, combination, probability, and set theory is the 3 chapters in modern maths. The 4 chapters of algebra are functions, equations, inequalities, and logarithms. And then 3 chapters of geometry are geometry, mensuration, and coordinate geometry. So that's how your syllabus gets completed. But if you do these first 10 chapters in the first 60 days, 8 chapters of arithmetic and 2 chapters of numbers, you would broadly, while in chapter count you are done only 50% of the topics, but in weightage count you actually done through 60%. The other option you have after arithmetic is straight away go to algebra, because the second most important area in CAT is algebra after arithmetic. And in algebra, out of 22 questions in the quant section, you'll typically find between 5 to 8 questions normally in algebra. Every slot, every year, you'll have 5 to 8 questions, which means 25 to almost 40% of the syllabus of the weightage of the exam is on algebra. So if you are okay with maths, I mean, why I did not suggest this in the first place, arithmetic ke baad seedha algebra pe chale jao, why I said number systems is because specifically for people who are slightly weak at maths, if you go straight into algebra after arithmetic, a lot of the concepts of maths which you learn through numbers and number systems, etc., might be required in algebra. So if your base in maths is weak, this might not be a very good strategy for you to do. But although coverage wise, it will take you all the way to 70 to 80% of the portion of the paper weightage if you can actually do algebra in your first 60 days. You can take this approach if you are an engineer. You can take this approach if you have been strong at quants, you don't have an issue with quants and with maths from school. But if you have a problem with maths or weak with maths, then the focus should be cover the arithmetic and cover the numbers. So how do you do it, right? What should be your schedule? So my perspective, what I will try to tell you, normally the comfortable rate at which you cover a chapter is around 7 to 8 days. But if you are trying to push yourself a little bit, you can actually easily do it in 5 days, right? So 5 days should be enough. 5 days should be enough per chapter, and that should be the target that you do for your first 20 days, for your first 60 days. So if you can cover the 8 topics of arithmetic in around 40 days, you just keep a calendar. Day 1 to 5 averages, day 6 to 10 percentage, day 11 to 15 ratio proportion, day 16 to 20 alligation mixtures, day 21 to 25 interest, day 26 to 30 profit and loss, day 31 to 35 time and work, Day 36 to 42 maybe time speed distance, because time speed distance is slightly longer chapter, so you might need around 7 days to cover it, because they're not just time speed distance but also application of time speed distance like boats and races and trains and clocks. So all these kinds of questions keep coming up on time speed distance concepts. So you might take 7-8 days. So by the 40th, 42nd, 43rd day, you should actually be over with your first round on these 8 topics, and that would get you ready with around 45% of your weightage in the exam. Followed by, and then you then move to the numbers area. Numbers area has 2 chapters: number systems and progressions. So while progression is a small chapter, number systems is a slightly longer chapter. So you can actually if you're finished the arithmetic on day 42, which means 6 weeks into your preparation, then number systems you can take from day 43 to day 56. You can take 2 weeks for it, because again it's a long chapter. It's a lot of concepts inside it, and the amount of problem solving you have to do is also slightly high on that. So you can actually take day 43 to 56 for number systems and day 57 to 60 for progressions. Alternately, if you have gone into algebra, then you just split the day 43 to day 60 for 5 days. Day 43 to 47 on functions, 48 to 52 on equations. Logs and inequalities is slightly smaller, so you can actually add 2 days to both of these, or one day to both of these. So instead of day 52, you can actually finish equations and functions on day 54, and then put 3 days for logs and 3 days for inequalities to be done with the 60-day target for yourself. And you are done with, if you actually can insert the algebra here instead of numbers, you actually done with 70% of the syllabus of your weightage from the weightage viewpoint, not from the chapter count viewpoint, but from the weightage viewpoint. So this is the approach. And of course, one of the things that I should talk about before I move to the next section in this context is when we talk about doing a chapter, what does it mean? So you will do 2-3 things in a chapter when you enter. First is you'll study the theory. So you either study the theory from my books, or you can study the theory from some of our courses. We have some great courses that we have for CAT preparation at Mindworkzz and the Arun Sharma Academy. You can look up the Scale Up program, Scale Up QA program, which is a complete quant solution for you. Of course, we have our full live CAT coaching program also with intense mentoring on a week-by-week basis for all of you. So that's something that you can pick up. So you do the theory of the portion, you do the basics of that chapter. Typically, you'll require 1 to 2. The first, if you're putting a 5-day schedule, so the first 1 to 2 days on a chapter you should be spending on the basics and the theory and learning some of the starting questions that a teacher might want to teach you. And then the next 3 days has to be problem solving on that topic. So you go to the level of difficulty 1 exercise from my book, and then you go to the level of difficulty 2 exercise from my book. So use these and do both these exercises. And while doing these exercises, it's not necessary for you, and it will not also happen that you'll be able to solve all the questions. So this is one of the things that you have to understand about quants prep, that when you do the theory and you go into the questions of the chapter, you'll not be able to solve all the questions, because there'll be triggers and reactions in those questions which are going to be slightly higher than what you have understood or what you are able to understand is at this point. Also, there's a lot of multidisciplinary, multi-chapter questions that you face, and unless you do, for example, if you're doing an average chapter question, and that's the first chapter you're studying, and there's a question that requires a concept that you will learn later in ratio proportion. So in your first round, when you're doing averages, you'll not be able to get it. So my advice to you is that keep a limit of around 10 minutes. Break your preparation down into solving a question. When you're solving a question, keep a limit of 10 minutes. If you do not get a question in 8 to 10 minutes, you quit the question. You will come back to it in the second round, because if you can cover 60% of a syllabus in the first 60 days, you will have a lot of time to keep coming back to the chapters, and don't get too despondent about questions you can't solve. Just keep moving ahead, just keep pushing ahead, and you should be done with this. So this is the strategy for quants. Let us now move on to the strategy for verbal ability and reading comprehension. That's the next section we'll talk about. Before I go there, one last thing. How much time do I want you to spend? So typically I would think that around 2 to 3 hours a day is decent if you are trying to do quants in 60 days. So because an individual topic will take you around 15 hours for the first visit on the topic, 3 to 4 hours you'll need for the theory, and then 10 hours of self problem solving, where you're trying to solve the question on your own. And that's where the 10-minute window for a question is important. Okay, if I can't solve a question, I'll move on. So typically, I would say 2 to 3 hours a day. Some of you might be working somewhere. You might not have 2 to 3 hours a day to be able to be dedicating to quants along with doing the other areas. In that case, look at it on a weekly perspective. Okay, I might not do 2 hours or 3 hours every day, but quants I'll do 3 days a week, but I'll spend 15 hours on quants. I'll spend 6 hours on Saturday, 6 hours on Sunday, couple of hours during the week, or 5 hours on Saturday, Sunday, and 2 hours on a couple of days more. And that's how I'll do my 15 hours work on the weekly basis. So let's now move into our discussion on verbal ability, reading comprehension. So when you come to verbal ability, reading comprehension, there's a small advantage and there's a disadvantage also. The advantage is that verbal ability, reading comprehension has no syllabus. So when we are talking about syllabus completion, 60% of syllabus completion in 60 days, we are actually not having any syllabus which we can actually quantify. Okay, this is what should be 60%. But yes, the first 60 days of your preparation verbal ability in terms of the track you're picking up should involve the heavy lifting. That means doing the maximum amount of work that you need to do in this section. So there might be two kinds of people here who are listening to this video with respect to VARC. One might be those of you who have strong language. So if your language is strong, you can just relax on VARC. The first 60 days, you just understand each of the question types. So in that case, I might just say that in the first 60 days of your preparation, even if you give a total of anywhere between 80 to 120 hours of preparation, that means 1.5 hours per day on an average, which basically means around 10 hours a week. So if you do that much, and you can straight away move, if your language is strong, you can straight away move into your solving processes. Even if you put 8 hours a week, 1.2 hours a day, that's also sufficient if your language is good. But the problem that occurs is in case your language is poor. That's where the problem starts occurring. That's where the heavy lifting needs to be done, because then your verbal ability, reading comprehension, preparation actually expands quite a bit. So if you have poor language, you'll need to do work on vocabulary. So typically you should take a pace of learning around 10 words, 8 to 10 words, idioms, phrases on a daily basis, because otherwise if you're not able to understand the words inside the articles that you're reading, you'll always have a gap between what the author is saying and what you're understanding. So for this, what I suggest is you don't try to go and memorize word lists, because that's not very productive. What you do is you'll have to do a lot of reading. If your language is weak, you'll have to do a lot of reading. And ultimately, what is our game? The game you're trying to play, if your language is weak, is to get to a point where no matter what they write, you have to get the ability to understand an 800-word passage. That's what the limit in CAT is. 800, upper limit 1000 word ले लो चलो. तो 1000 words में कुछ भी लिखा है, कोई भी topic, कितना भी difficulty level, you should be able to understand. You have to get to that point when you're talking about ability to comprehend. Or anything that you'll face in the CAT will be lower than that, whether it's critical reasoning, or it's odd man out, or it's parajumble, or it's summary of a paragraph. They are typically 150, 100, 150 words at max. The reading comprehension passages around 700, 800 words. बहुत extreme case में 1000 word का passage आएगा. CAT 24 had a slightly longer passage length than CAT 23 and 22. So you have to be ready for a little bit of deviation. But तभी भी upper limit 1000 words here. So you have to practice. Your first 60 days has to be about improving your language in that case, if your language is poor. And for that, you need to start a progression of reading higher level of content. So you can start with newspapers like Times of India or Hindustan Times at the first level of reading. But gradually you have to move from there to newspapers. If you're talking about Indian publications, Indian Express or the Hindu has slightly better content. And when I talk about reading, it's not just, you do not You need to understand that the reading that will come in the exam, in the CAT exam, will mostly be about analysis based reading. There are three reasons why anything is written. When I read something on a piece of paper or on a screen, the person who wrote it can write it for three reasons. He can write it to entertain you, he can write it to inform you, or he can write it to convince you about an argument that he is presenting. So this third kind of writing is what you will face in the CAT. It's always about argumentation, argument presenting. You're not going to have information-based writing. You're not going to have entertainment-based writing in the CAT. So your reading, the reading that you do has to be on editorials and analysis or opinions-based reading. That is what you're trying to do. Whereas author suggests a point of view and then he supports it with logic, etc. So typically. The pace that you should pick up in the first 60 days would typically, if I was in your place, I would, and I was weak at language, I would keep a target of reading around 5 articles a day of a length of around 800 to 1000 words. So if I'm reading 5 articles a day, in the first 60 days, I'll be reading around 300 articles, and I'll try to make it as diverse as possible. I'll not read only from one subject or one area. I'll try to read philosophy, economics, commerce, whatever. I mean, international relations, international politics, geopolitics. I'll read from different areas. And it's very easy to find out the kind of sources the CAT actually picks up passages from. So I'll start reading that kind of stuff. So you can, at one end, you can read the Times of India and Hindustan Times for the first 10-15 days, but gradually you move to that, and ultimately you reach New York Times and Economist and the Guardian and the Eon essays. Ultimately you reach that. So by the end of 60 days, you should be done ideally with around 300 articles of reading. And it's always good to keep a numerical target, because otherwise you're just reading for the sake of reading. But if you keep a numerical target, you're going to 300 article padna hai. 1000 words each means I'm reading 3 lakh words in the first 60 days. And that should suffice to actually set you on a path to growth in your language abilities. And along with this, you can actually merge the vocabulary part into your reading by keeping a vocabulary register. So what you should do is, whenever you come across a word which is not known, you write that in your vocabulary register. You put that in your vocabulary register and just see the meaning once. Don't memorize it. No point ratifying it, trying to push it into your mind कि ये निकले नहीं बाहर, वो निकल जाएगा हमेशा. But what will happen is, as you start reading regularly and you start becoming a regular reader, across 200, 300, 400 articles when you start reading, what will start happening is that the more commonly used words, the more frequently used words will keep coming more than once. So what will happen is you'll get a chance to revise each word, because the moment you suppose you came across a word in today's while reading an article, let's say in Eon, you came across some word, let's say XYZ, and 10 days later you were reading something else in some other source and you came across the same word again. So first day तुमने उस word को register में लिख दिया, second day उसको revise कर लिया. So ऐसे करके अगर 3 बार तुम्हारे normal reading में that word comes, that word will become yours forever. You don't need to memorize it. And you also don't need to bother about a word that came only once. In 6 months of reading, अगर कोई word एक ही बार तुम्हारे सामने आएगा, so it means that word is not a very commonly used word, and very unlikely that is going to be a word that will be there in the CAT. Right? There's always a chance, but the chances are low. So you don't need to bother much about that. So this is what you'll do for your verbal ability, reading comprehension. Parallelly, you start solving. So by the 60th day, in the first 2 months, what you can do is you can set a pace of around 5 reading comprehension passages a week. You can set a pace of around 2 questions of parajumbles, or maybe 5 questions across the verbal ability. Verbal ability has only 3 or 4 question types that CAT tests you for. They are summary, odd man out, last sentence or missing sentence in a paragraph, and of course parajumbles. So you focus on these 4 question types. Do around 3-4 questions of each, 5 questions of each every week. And so that by the end of 60 days, 8.5 weeks, you've done around 50 questions of each of these. And you've got a fair idea about what kind of accuracy you have and how to think through those questions. So this should set you on the path for verbal. And now we come to the last section, which is your data interpretation and logical reasoning section. which is very important to understand how to prepare for it and what to do in the first 60 days. Okay, so we come to the data interpretation logical reasoning section. Now, in DILR, just like verbal ability reading comprehension, there is no portion. You only have questions. You are supposed to read a question and bring your problem solving skills to the table and solve the question. Right? And difference between data interpretation and logical reasoning is data interpretation is the interpretation of data. Some charts or graphs are given to you. You will read those graphs and charts and bring out the information coming from there. So when you interpret data, you bring out information, right? So that's the data interpretation bit. And the logical reasoning bit is where you have a puzzle or a situation with clues, and you're supposed to utilize the clues to fit everything into place like a jigsaw puzzle and get the answers to the questions. Like 6 people sitting on 6 different chairs in a straight line. One is wearing red, the other is wearing blue. So you don't know who's wearing what and who's sitting in which chair. So you've got clues which will help you identify all the answers to the questions which are going to be asked on that set. So in DILR, because there is no portion, the best part of preparation of DILR is that you straight away head into experiencing DILR. There's only one way to learn DILR, and that is creating problem-solving experiences. And problem-solving experiences can happen through 2 ways. One is through self-problem solving. The other is through assisted problem solving, where a teacher like me shows you how to think through a DILR question. So that I've done for a lot of my sets and questions in my courses on the Arun Sharma Academy and Mindworkzz. You can have a look at some of those courses. We'll provide you the links in the videos, in the description of the videos. You can go and have a look. And maybe some of you would want to study with me for the year. You can actually look at taking some of our courses and continuing your preparation. But anyway, coming back to this thing in terms of structuring your preparation. Now, what happens typically, DILR preparation has 3 broad parts. One part is to experience data interpretation, experience logical reasoning in the first 300 or 400 sets that you do. So typically because there's no portion, getting through around 300, 400 sets of DI and LR becomes your portion to do, right? And parallelly, once you're done with 300 sets, let's say of DI plus LR, your next bit is to experience the actual exam questions. And the third bit is to actually start solving data interpretation, logical reasoning based mocks, either sectional tests on it or full length tests. When you take the full length tests, you learn what is happening, you understand what's happening to your scores in the DILR section. So that's what you do when you're doing DILR ultimately. So what would be my suggestion for the first 60 days? So again, my suggestion, if I was to guide you, I'll tell you that the first 60 days has to be very aggressive on DILR. A lot of people, what I see, they do a lot of quants in the first 60 days, they do a lot of verbal in the first 60 days, but they keep DILR on the background. So please remember, you're going to spend 40 minutes on the exam D-Day learning or doing only DILR in those 40 minutes of the section. So you have a process of preparing for verbal. So whatever you do for verbal, that will only help you in the verbal section. Whatever you do for quants, it will only help you in the 40 minutes of quants. So this 40 minutes of DILR, so if you're prepared for 50 weeks for verbal, you'll get the benefit of that in the verbal section. If you're prepared for 50 weeks for quants, you'll get the benefit of that in quants. But if you're prepared only for 35 weeks for DILR, you will not get the benefit of 50 weeks of preparation of DILR, which is why right from day one, you should start your DI and LR activity. So what you do is on a day-to-day basis, you're studying quants and you're studying English. So my suggestion is that you alternate. One day I'll do DI, one day I do LR. Or you can do one thing, that is 5 days of the week you're doing quants plus English. 2 days you dedicate only to DILR. So whatever you do, my target for you would be around 12 to 15 sets if you're going aggressive and trying to cover 60% of the work you need to do, syllabus coverage work you need to do. As I told you, 250, 300 sets is what is required. So in the first, if you do around 12 to 15 sets of DI and 12 to 15 sets of LR every week, you are approximately getting problem solving exposure of 25 to 30 sets every week. And 60 days is around 8.5 weeks. So in 8.5 weeks, you will end up getting around 100 to 120 sets, 100 to 110 sets of DI, 100 to 110 sets of LR, which while it will not be equal to 60% of his syllabus or of 300 in each of these, I said 60% of 300 in each of these, but DI LR में क्या है, it's not counted. मतलब हो सकता है तुम्हारा काम 200 में ही हो जाए before you head to the exam. So your preparation, I've seen people who did 200 sets of solving of DI, and then they went through the CAT exam questions and they could solve everything. And then when they went to the mocks, their DI was working like a dream. So it can happen. Why I said 300 is because that involves a factor of safety in your calculations. If you think that 200 में काम हो जाना चाहिए और तुम 300 करते हो तो तुम्हारे रिस्क एलिमिनेट हो जाता है. सो टारगेट 300 रखो और पहले 60 days में कीप अ टारगेट ओवर ऑन 100 sets, worst case 100 sets of DI and 100 sets of LR. In my view, this will set you on a very strong footing with respect to your DI/LR prep, because उसके बाद things will start getting downhill, because जो भी प्रॉब्लम होता है, मैक्सिमम प्रॉब्लम जो होता है DI और LR सेक्शन में, वो फर्स्ट 100 days में होता है. उसके बाद इट्स द नेक्स्ट 100 sets you are doing, the first 100 sets में प्रॉब्लम होता है. The next 100 sets you are doing, you'll start seeing, recognizing patterns. You'll start seeing, it's like they say, as they say in chess, if you play seriously and study chess seriously for 5 years, you'll become a grandmaster, because everything in chess is about patterns of play. So similarly, DI and LR is completely about patterns of situations. So you have to understand those situations, you have to experience the situations, and just because you experience a situation once, the next time it will become easier. So your next 100 sets and the next 100 sets will start getting easier and easier still. So the heavy lifting you have to do basically is in the first 100, 150 sets that you're doing. And I would suggest that in the first 60 days of your preparation, you should be done with this. So this is the comprehensive 60% in 60 days strategy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and it gave you a perspective of how to start your CAT preparation in a strong fashion, on a strong wicket, so that you have a strong opening partnership. As you know, in cricket, they say that if your opening partnership is strong, you win half your games, more than half your games. And that's what we need to do when you are preparing for this CAT exam, which is one of the most important landmarks in your academic journey. So thank you so much. Do follow me for more, and do comment on the video. I love reading your comments. Might not respond to everyone, but there are times where I get a lot of ideas from what you do say on the channel. And thank you so much. Look forward to getting more for you. And do give me suggestions about what you want to hear from me next. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.